Punk. Punk, a subculture that emerged in the late 1960s and early 1970s in the United Kingdom, the United States, Canada, and Australia. It is currently subdivided into street punk, crust punk, anarcho-punk, and just punk, which combines elements of all subcultures of the movement. Bands such as the Ramones and Sex Pistols are considered the first bands to play music in the punk rock style. Closely associated with punk rock is the name of the famous American artist Andy Warhol and the band Velvet Underground, which he produced. Their lead singer, Lou Reed, is considered the founding father of alternative rock, a movement closely related to punk rock. Punks are characterized by a colourful, epithetic image. Many punks dye their hair bright, unnatural colours, curl it, and fix it with hairspray, diamondine, or gel to make it stand straight. In the 1980s, the mohawk hairstyle became fashionable among punks. They wear ripped jeans tucked into heavy boots or tucked under heavy boots, Dr. Martens, and sneakers, Converse. Some pre-soak their jeans in a bleach solution to turn them red. Sneakers were started by the Ramones, and they adopted this style from Mexican gangs, also called Latinos. A kossu jacket with lots of rivets, designs and badges is an attribute of the 1950s, when the motorcycle subculture of rockers and rock and roll were inseparable components. Punks of the first wave sought to return to rock music deliberate cockiness and drive, which over time has been taken away by the mass commercialization of music. Dead style prevails in clothing. Punks put skulls and sigils on their clothing and accessories. Punks also wear various attributes of rocker subcultures. Wristbands, bracelets, mostly leather with spikes, rivets, chains, etc., and often make them themselves. Many punks have tattoos. Punks often wear ripped, worn jeans, attach chains to their jeans, sew various patches to their jeans, for example, with the logos of their favourite punk bands or political slogans. Straight edge, an offshoot of the hardcore subculture that emerged as a reaction to the sexual revolution, hedonism, and other lack of temperance associated with punk rock. The bearers of this subculture are called straitjackets. In its simplest form, the straight edge philosophy denies the use of any alcoholic beverages, tobacco, also any other drugs in general, and opposes promiscuous sexual activity. It also aims at constant all-round development, material, social, physical, etc., and spiritual, mental, moral, etc., and provides for a healthy lifestyle. In some cases, this includes leading a vegetarian and vegan lifestyle, avoiding the use of caffeine-containing products and medications. Straight edgers are guided by the principle of stay punk, stay clean. The term was borrowed from the music group Minor Threat, who wrote a song called Straight Edge. The founder of Straight Edge is the band's founder and vocalist, Ian Thomas Garner Mackay. In the early stages of Straight Edge and its philosophy was to rebel through self-control. With the ability to control their actions, a member of the Straight Edge would be better equipped to resist the mainstream. The first wave of Straight Edge did not impose rules on others. Rather, participants chose to follow the paths of self-control. With the second wave of Straight Edge, these rules were used to control others. In addition, the second wave saw a change in musical style. Where the first wave was influenced by hardcore punk, the second wave brought aspects of heavy metal music that further pushed for power and control over others. The slowing down of the music reflected people's focus on their path to self-control. Hip-hop, a cultural and artistic movement created by African Americans, Latinos, and Caribbean Americans in the Bronx, New York City. Hip-hop is characterized by 4 key elements: performing rapping, a rhythmic vocal style of rhyming; DJing, that is, creating music using vinyl turntables and DJ mixers; performing breakdancing, performing beatboxing, and painting graffiti. The Bronx hip-hop scene emerged in the mid-1970s from neighbourhood parties organised by the African-American group Black Spades, described as a gang, club and music group. Sibling duo DJ Kool Herc and Cindy Campbell also hosted DJ parties in the Bronx and are credited with developing the genre. Hip-hop culture spread to both urban and suburban communities across the United States and then around the world. These elements were adapted and developed significantly, especially as the art form spread to new continents and fused with local styles in the 1990s and subsequent decades. Although the movement continues to expand globally and explore myriad styles and art forms, including hip-hop theatre and hip-hop films, the 4 foundational elements provide coherence and a strong foundation for hip-hop culture. Hip-hop is both new and old. The importance of sampling tracks, beats and bass lines from older records into an art form means that much of the culture revolves around the idea of updating classic records, attitudes and experiences for modern audiences. Sampling older culture and reusing it in a new context or format is referred to as flipping in hip-hop culture. Hip-hop music follows in the footsteps of earlier African American and Latin American music genres such as blues, jazz, ragtime, funk, salsa, and disco to become one of the most popular genres in the world. Gothic. Goth, a subculture that spread in the late 1970s in Great Britain on the basis of the punk movement. Gothic subculture is quite diverse and heterogeneous, but all its representatives are characterized to a greater or lesser extent by a specific dark image, interest in Gothic music, mysticism, black humor, films, and horror literature. Being originally youth, now in the world, the subculture is represented by people aged 14 to 45 years and older. Appearance, clothes and shoes, hairstyles, paraphernalia is one of the most important components of the Gothic subculture and can receive paramount importance in the eyes of its carriers. The term mole goth, which is derisively used to refer to those who pay more attention to their image without listening to Gothic music. The trendsetters of Gothic fashion were musicians whose appearance was oriented by their fans. At the early stage of development of the Gothic subculture for its representatives were characterized by some elements of the appearance of punks. From this movement, goths borrowed piercings, hairstyles in the form of high spikes and mohawks. Gothic fashion of the 1980s was much more extreme and blatant than can be seen now, and developed on the principle of do-it-yourself. Its fans sewed their own clothes and made jewelry from improvised materials, and store-bought things are often either reshaped or in every way modified, torn, decorated with patches and English pins. The main elements of the modern Gothic image, the predominance of black in clothing, the use of metal or silver jewelry with symbols of the Gothic subculture and characteristic makeup. Typical attributes used by Goths are the ankh, an ancient Egyptian symbol of immortality, crosses, including Celtic crosses, images of bats and symbols of death. Goths sometimes wear various kinds of magical or occult signs. Emo. The subculture finally formed and experienced a peak of popularity in the 2000s, but its heyday was short-lived. In the 2010s, the emo style went out of fashion and many fans lost interest in it. Not the least role in this played a negative attitude to the emo style from many other subcultures, as well as from society as a whole. The time of emo's birth was the mid-1980s, and the place was Washington, D.C. The subculture was shaped mainly by the influence of music. In the mid-1980s, a new trend of emo-core emerged from hardcore punk, with lyrics expressing personal experiences. The first emo band is usually considered to be Rites of Spring, although the band itself does not recognize this. The next wave began in the 1990s with the bands Sunny Day Real Estate, Piebald, Captain Jazz, and The Promise Ring. While the first wave was underground, the second wave reached a wider audience. Bands popular with emo were often no longer emo-core. The third wave began in the 2000s and became the most mass. Fall Out Boy, My Chemical Romance, Paramore and Panic set the musical fashion. Popular social network MySpace, which promoted musical groups, contributed to the wide spread of the subculture. It was at this time that the recognizable emo style in clothing, hairstyles and makeup was formed. Slanted bangs, black and pink color scheme, skull and bone emblems, etc. The traditional emo hairstyle is an oblique, ripped bangs to the tip of the nose, covering one eye with long or short hair in the back. Preference is given to stiff, straight black hair. Girls can have childish, funny hairstyles, 2 little ponytails, bright hairpins, hearts on the sides, bars. To create these hairstyles, emo use a lot of fixing hairspray. Often emo pierce ears or make tunnels. On the face and other parts of the body, emo can be piercings, for example, in the lips, tongue and nostril, eyebrows, chin, bridge of the nose. Both boys and girls can paint their lips to match their skin colour using a light foundation. Eyes thickly eyeliner pencil or mascara. Nails are covered with black nail polish. Skinhead. The first mentions of skinheads in the press and music are found in England in the late 1960s. One of the first names of the subculture was hard mods. The movement was represented by people from poor families who expressed contempt for bourgeois society. Music imported from Jamaica, such as reggae and ska, was important in their subculture, so dark-skinned people were also found among the first skinheads. Thus, racism as an integral part of the ideology was absent among the first-wave skinheads. They expressed their dislike of Pakistanis, but more as members of the bourgeoisie, as there were many of them engaged in trade. In the 1970s, skinheads also appeared in the United States, where they did not show nationalistic tendencies until about the mid-1980s, adhering to a variety of political views. The nationalist skinhead movement began to form in England in the late 1970s. At that time, the country was in an economic crisis. In the most depressed regions, a subculture of second-wave skinheads appeared, which revolved around street fights. Against a backdrop of massive business closures, unemployment, and cuts in social benefits, the far right blamed migrants, especially those from Asia and Africa, for the economic problems. The nationalists also sponsored the creation of musical skin clubs where music with racist lyrics was played. A key figure in skinhead nationalists was racist musician Ian Stewart, who founded the Rock Against Communism movement, the band Screwdriver, and formed the skinhead organisation Blood and Honour. In the early 1980s, Ian Stewart forged ties with German right-wing radicals and spread Nazi symbols and a fascination with Nordicism among fans. The appearance of skinheads largely repeats the appearance of the mods. Sweaters, Levi's jeans, classic Crombie coat, and Dr. Martens boots, but in addition, has its own peculiarities. To the basic appearance were added plaid shirts, denim jackets, thin suspenders. The latter became a kind of business card of the style. Long mod jackets disappeared. This style was called boots and braces. This look is mentioned in several songs of the 60s, which were recorded by Jamaican ska and reggae performer Laurel Aitken. The main components of the style, boots, jeans, shirt, suspenders, short haircut, and so on, are mentioned in the songs Skinhead Jamboree and Skinhead Girl by the reggae band Symarip, recorded in 1969. Metal. Metalists, a subculture of metal music fans. Having appeared in the late 1970s together with the genre itself in the USA and Great Britain, this subculture has spread to most countries of the world, taking different forms depending on the development of metal subgenres and its regional scenes. In this regard, the outlook and appearance of metalheads can differ significantly depending on a variety of moments, but in most cases the cornerstone elements remain a kind of style and clothing inspired by the biker subculture, as well as the cultivation of individualism and personal freedom. Products made of denim fabric, denim pants, denim jackets, denim vests were and remain relevant among rockers and metalists for 40-50 years. Modern metalists decorate denim vests with patches with metal band logos and album covers. One of the distinctive and stereotypical features of representatives of the metal subculture are studded bracelets, leather products, riveted leather belts, wristbands and collars, leather pants and flared pants, leather jackets and shirts, riveted cozies, have been used by hard rockers, glam rockers and proto-metalists almost from the very beginning of the heavy genre fan movement. 70s musicians such as Suzi Quatro, Kiss, Scorpions, Judas Priest were some of the main characters who popularized the leather and metal style in the 70s hard rock era. In the 1980s, the fashion for leather and metal jewelry captured not only the entire heavy mainstream of cult artists of the genre, but went to the masses of fans, becoming stereotypical for the image of a teenage metal fan of heavy rock. By the end of the 80s, style spread even to pop music and pop music. This style of clothing became one of the symbols of the 80s. Furry became one of the symbols of the 80s. Furry is a community of people who are interested in art and culture related to anthropomorphic animals, creatures with human-like features. Furries create costumes, drawings, and other forms of self-expression using nature motifs and identifying with the characters, but do not consider themselves to be adorned or embodied animals. Some furries strongly identify with one or more animal species, which can manifest itself in online interactions and sometimes in the creation of fursuit costumes. Furry culture is a type of human self-expression. Furry fandom consumes and creates artistic and literary materials and comes together at online resources and conferences, conventions. The emergence of furries was influenced by anthropomorphic characters and Disney animation, particularly The Lion King, a cartoon in which wild big cats were endowed with human qualities by the authors. The development of the internet also played a role, allowing furries to find each other online. Local networking of furries began even earlier and took place on the servers of several American universities in a network role-playing game chat room called Furry Muck, which has existed since 1990, as well as other internet resources and web forums. Gabber. The Gabber subculture is a hardcore techno music trend that emerged in the Netherlands in the early 1990s. This trend is characterized by a very fast tempo, usually 160 to 220 BPM, heavy bass and aggressive rhythms. Gabber music usually contains a lot of distortion, samples and hard drum beats. The Gabber subculture also includes a certain style of dress and lifestyle. People who belong to this subculture may wear bright and extravagant clothing such as caps with high visors, tracksuits, t-shirts with bright prints, and sneakers. Gabber's dance style often includes energetic and boisterous movements. The Gabber subculture also has its own special hangouts and events. Gabber hangouts, known as Gabber parties or hardcore raves, are usually held in large clubs or warehouse spaces where participants dance on the dance floor to loud Gabber music. Although the Gabber subculture originated in the Netherlands, it has become popular in other countries, primarily in Europe. Over time, the Gabber style has evolved to include different subgenres and variations, but its basic characteristics, such as high tempo, heavy bass, and energetic rhythms, have remained characteristic of this musical and cultural subculture. Hippies. The hippie subculture emerged in the late 1960s during the countercultural revolution in the United States and other Western countries. Hippies were known for their anti-authoritarian and anti-conformist views, as well as their desire for peace, love, equality, and environmental awareness. Here are a few characteristics of the hippie subculture. Love and peace. Hippies preached the ideal of love and peace, expressing their support for peace and nonviolence and rejecting military conflict and hostilities. Free love. The hippie subculture rejected traditional norms and standards in relationships and promoted free love and openness in sexual relationships. Environmental awareness. Hippies placed a high value on nature and ecology, espousing ideas of environmental protection and sustainable living. Psychedelic drugs. Many hippies adhered to psychedelic culture, using drugs such as LSD and marijuana, believing them to be a way to expand consciousness and spiritual enlightenment. Music and festivals. Music played an important role in the hippie subculture. Hippies listened to psychedelic rock, folk and blues, and organized music festivals such as Woodstock to come together and celebrate their ideals. Strict decor. The hippies' style of dress included bright and colorful outfits, festival garb, boho-style outfits, and other eccentric elements that reflected their cultural values and ideals. Although the hippie subculture had its peak of popularity in the late 1960s and early 1970s, its influence remains significant in today's culture and society, especially with regard to music, fashion, environmentalism, and lifestyle. Subscribe to the channel and suggest your ideas for the next video in comments.